Hey everybody, it's Corona Story Time again. My name's Dave. I'm going to be reading from How Music Works by David Byrne, lead singer of Talking Heads. And let's get into it. I felt that the melodies and the lyrics I was going to write for Remain in Light had to respond to all these new, for us, musical qualities. One might even say that the recording process, because it privileged trance-like and transcendent music, was about to affect the words that I would gravitate toward. The gently ecstatic nature of the tracks meant that angsty personal lyrics like the ones I'd written previously might not be the best match. So I had to find some new lyrical approach. I filled page after page with phrases that matched the melodic lines of the verses and choruses, hoping that some of them might complement the feelings the music generated. On the following page is a small sample of some of the phrases I jotted down in this manner for the song that eventually became Once in a Lifetime. Judging by the fact that on this particular page there are actual stanzas and couplets, I suspect I was pretty far along in the process. Earlier pages would have included anything, absolutely anything, that fit the meter and syllabic form, and might not have included any rhymes or be on a trajectory toward a subject. What's with the color coding? I believe that the red texts were the cold favorites. I still often write in very much the same way today, but without the color coding and minuscule handwriting. Well, here, I'll show you. I tried not to censor the potential lyrics I wrote down. Sometimes I would sing the melodic fragments over and over, trying random lyric phrases, and I could sense when one syllable was more appropriate than another. I began to notice, for example, that the choice of a hard consonant instead of a soft one implied something emotional. A consonant wasn't merely a formal decision, it felt different. Vowels, too, had emotional resonances. A soft oo and a pinched nasal ah have very different associations. I felt I had to adhere to whatever syllables seemed to fit the existing melody best, so I'd listen to the gibberish vocals respectfully and let those be my guide. If I seemed to instinctively gravitate to an ah on the gibberish vocal mix, I'd try to stick to that sound in the lyrics I was writing. More restrictions, but okay. In keeping with the rapturous nature of some of the tracks, I was also drawing lyrical inspiration from the radio preachers I'd been listening to and that we'd used on the Bush of Ghosts record. At that time, American radio was a cauldron of impassioned voices, live preachers, talk show hosts, and salesmen. The radio was shouting at you, pleading with you, and seducing you. You could also hear great salsa singers as well as gospel being broadcast straight from the churches. I can only imagine Eno's reaction coming from a country with 4 fairly restrained radio stations. I don't listen to the radio much anymore, though. There's still variety on some stations, but it's mostly been homogenized, like so many other parts of our culture. I wrote the verses of Once in a Lifetime at my home on East 7th Street in the East Village. I started by taking on the character of a radio preacher I'd heard on one of my cassettes. There was a serious use of anaphora, employing the same phrase to begin each sentence. It's a common device that preachers use, and it brings their speechifying one step closer to poetry and song. 1 or 2 fragments that I used, the repetition of the phrase, "you may find yourself," for example, were straight lifts from the radio preacher. But from there I'd improvise and change the focus from a Christian message to, well, I wasn't sure at first what I was getting at. The preacher was focusing on the lack of spirituality and material striving. He may have begun by telling the listener that there was nothing wrong with living in a shotgun house, a house in which all the rooms are in a line so straight you could shoot a shotgun straight through. You see them a lot in New Orleans. So the mention of the beautiful house, the beautiful wife, and the trappings of an ideal life situation would have been a natural segue for me. I'd get myself worked up, pacing back and forth, breathing in sync with the preacher. Phrases would come into my head and I'd jot them down as quickly as possible. I maybe went off topic once or twice. Let's end it there. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.